Hi guys, just me Sim, and welcome to another one of my half-baked reviews. Um, the reason why I want to do this half-baked review is because of the fact that the Callisto Protocol was being released on the Epic Game Store as a free grab. As of this video, it's still free to grab right now until tomorrow at 11 p.m. So if you want to play a game that was kind of supposed to be the spiritual successor of Dead Space, you can. But um, just to let you know that the game is nothing 100% to write home about. I got it because I actually wanted to try the game out, and to be fairly honest, if I had to give the game a number grade, and I have to give the game a letter grade along with a general opinion of what the game is like, for a number grade, I would give it. If I was upset, if I bought the game at full price, I would give it a straight up 4, maybe 5 out of 10. If I got the game on sale, it would be a 5.5, maybe a 6. But since I got it for free, and I'm not stingy about having free stuff, it's more of a 6.2, 6.5. It's not the worst game in the world, but it isn't the best survival horror game out there. There's plenty more out there. You can take it from a guy who's played a lot of survival horror games. I've played all the Resident Evil games under the sun, except for a few that I'm trying to go through, such as my Chris playthrough of the original PC port of Resident Evil 1 and off of GOG, and I'm planning on doing a playthrough of the third game since I already played the 2 remake. Um, I've played. I'm trying to get through Zero, and I've played all the Dead Space games, all the canonical ones from Numeric 1, 2, and 3. I've played all the Evil Within games. I even played some really well-known indie survival horror games that are really good, such as Alyssa, Signalis, and Nightmare Decay. Those are actually relatively good games. Nightmare Decay being short, but it's still fun, and it has a dungeon crawler mode, which is really cool. But aside from that, though, I I have my mixed feelings about Callisto Protocol. Aside from getting the game for free, on one hand, it did a lot of cool, unique things that made it put itself on the map. People were like, cool, this is a survival horror game that's going to focus mostly on melee combat, but he's still going to have guns and stuff. And it had an interesting premise. On the other hand, the game feels like it was rushed out the door really fast for no reason. And it shows, especially when the game first released, since the game was plagued with not only graphical issues, stuttering, frame rate issues, and a bunch of other things, but it also was lackluster to what people have said. Like, some people have said that this is one of the worst survival horror games of this generation. And while that's very debatable, I can see why as I've played it. And I've played a lot of games that have decent reviews nowadays, and I'm like, you know what? Fair point. I mean, I'm not really against giving another game a second chance. Like I've seen Duke Nukem Forever go from being mostly negative to mixed to literally mostly positive now. Aliens Colonial Reigns is getting better. People are playing that, giving it better reviews and stuff. But aside from that, it's just literally like Resident Evil and all the other games are way better than Callisto Protocol entirely. And I'm gonna get into my reasons why. Here, let's start off with the things I did not like about Callisto Protocol. And number one is its linearity. I don't like linear games. Well, I do like linear games, but I like it when they give me something to do or allow me to explore and give me reasons to actually explore the linear levels to actually, have merit and stuff. Games like Doom, Dead Space, Resident Evil, Evil Within, all the games I mentioned up until now. Even games that I'm literally looking forward to, such as Gundam Breakers 4, and which is coming out relatively soon at the time of this video. Um, Games like the Castlevania series and stuff like that. I look forward to being able to explore in a linear space regardless. But at the same time, this game's linearity is so thick, it makes me wonder why they even bother going a survival horror route for this game. Because usually survival horror games, yeah, sure, some of them can be linear, but they do provide a lot of exploration that gets you benefits, such as finding like new guns, upgrades, something to sell at a store to be able to make more upgrades, secrets that give you like bonuses in the end. This game doesn't do that a lot, and it sucks. And another reason for the linearity being so thick and upsetting is because of the fact that this game has no map. Out of all the games and genres, you make a survival horror game that encourages you to explore, fight enemies, upgrade your equipment. And that exploration is difficult to gauge when, one, you don't give a lot of pathing indicators of what could be a secret and what could. Especially for me, I love to explore, and even I couldn't figure out there are a lot of secrets in the game. I literally had to go out of my way just on a hunch. And you don't have a map? Why don't you have a map? Resident Evil has a map. Signalis, Alyssa, Resident Evil, the Dead Space, The Evil Within. Hell, even the game I mentioned, Nightmare Decay, the relatively short survival horror game, had a map. Callisto Protocol doesn't, making it so that you can't really tell if one place is going to be a secret or not. And even then, it's also so linear that it's kind of difficult to get lost. There's only like 2 paths you can go. One could be a secret, one could be like the main path. And even then, as I said, you have no visual indicators of whether what's a secret and what's not, aside from probably a locked door or the area feeling a little bit, out of place. But for a person who probably doesn't have that kind of instinct to be like, I'll go explore here to see if this is a secret, some people might not know. Some people might be missing out and stuff. Especially if you're trying to get upgrades for your equipment, or just trying to find something to make ends meet if you're playing on a harder difficulty, which I didn't play on. I played on medium because I couldn't be asked. But still, the linearity is so just embedded in the game, it feels like exploring is just meaningless. Even if you do find a secret, all you do is find loot that is just not meritable. Games like Dead Space and Resident Evil, when you find a secret, it has its worth. You might have find a ton of healing items, a ton of ammo that you may have needed, maybe even like some equipment like grenades. Dead Space, if you explore hard enough, you might find some power nodes you can use for upgrades. Resident Evil, especially the games from 4 and up, you can find some currency to be able to get upgrades and stuff. Like a lot of currency that you can sell off, maybe even treasures. But Callisto Protocol does not have that. It's just, you find just basic stuff that you use to sell at the Reforge, and that's it. And that gets me to another thing about the Callisto Protocol that I did not like, is the upgrade system, the currency, and ways of getting that currency. In the game, you get Callisto creds from them just lying around, being in boxes, dropped from enemies when you stomp on them, and just from general exploring. But the Callisto cred count is so little, you tend to wonder if the people living on Callisto were in poverty or something, because you'll be running around and you can barely get any Callisto creds that are in the 50 range, let alone 100. I was surprised I managed to open a chest and got 118 Callisto cred. That's another thing, the Callisto cred amount is kind of random, and it's like if there's a random number generator when it comes to the Callisto creds. So literally, you can kill one enemy, get 22 Callisto creds, you kill another enemy, get 48, kill another enemy, you get 18, and you're like, why is it so out of place? Why are these Callisto creds so just sparse and spaced out like this? And it's to encourage you to explore to find contraband items. Callisto Protocol takes place on a prison known as Black Iron Prison on the moon of Callisto that's surrounding Saturn. And the thing is that there are contraband items that you need to find, such as energy converters, decoders, CPUs. And these items have two variants. You have the normal variant, and you have the pristine variant. The normal variant gets you just a decent amount of credits off rip. Like, if I remember correctly, the CPUs were 1,500 for the decoders, and the energy converters were, I think, like around 120, maybe 100, maybe like 200 or something like that. The pristine versions are double that. And the pristine versions are extremely rare. They require you to explore, find chests, maybe kill them off certain boss enemies and stuff like that. The thing is, though, due to the upgrade system and how it's laid out and how much currency you need, you will most likely, even if you only use the two weapons you were given at the start of the game on a new playthrough, such as the hand cannon and the riot shotgun, you won't likely upgrade everything by the end of the game. And I've done that. I've played the game on normal, and I've done everything I could. I've sold grip batteries, I've sold medical supplies, I've literally looked every nook and cranny and killed every enemy I could to get as much Callisto credit as possible. And I managed to fully upgrade the riot shotgun, the hand cannon, but I couldn't fully upgrade the baton and the grip. And the reason why is because the last few upgrades are so expensive, you tend to freaking just sit there and wonder, do I have to play another playthrough? Especially if you're one of those people who get the weapon blueprints and unlock them immediately. So that means you're spending more money to not only get weapons, but you're also spending more money to upgrade those weapons. And let's also not talk about the fact that literally carrying items that are used to sell for Callisto cred at the Reforge, that can literally be difficult because of the fact of the inventory system. Jacob does not carry a lot of crap. This is another reason why I didn't like, was another thing I didn't like about Callisto Protocol. Jacob doesn't carry a lot of crap. He only carries around 6 items in his prison garb, and then 12 items in the Callisto EVA suit. But the problem with the inventory system is that it's so limited that quite literally there's no way for you to actually be able to carry a decent amount of gear without having to drop something of importance. For example, there was one moment in my playthrough, this is actually a segment of my playthrough, this is my first playthrough, this is a segment, there was a moment in my playthrough where I had to sacrifice 3 healing items just to pick up not only a decoder, but also 2 items, one of them being pristine. It was an energy converter and a pristine CPU. I had to sacrifice a healing item that I also could have got $100 for, just for a CP, just for some items that I was going to sell at the store. And you may be wondering, maybe you can go back and go grab the medical item you dropped so you can resell that. Unfortunately, due to this game's linearity, you can walk one direction, sell off a couple stuff at a Reforge, think you can go back and pick up the item that you dropped before. Well, unfortunately, that door is locked. Or better yet, it was a one-way trip. And that's what literally stopped you from being able to get the maximum amount of cash for upgrades and stuff. And my main problem with the inventory system is that since it's so limited and you can't carry a lot of stuff, you have to drop a lot of things, especially like ammunition, healing items, maybe a GRP or grip batteries that you may need to use or you may want to sell. And here's the thing, this wouldn't be a problem if the game had some sort of storage system in the game. There are a lot of games that have a storage system. You have Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 with their item boxes. Resident Evil 4, same thing with 5. Resident Evil 4 with the suitcase. Resident Evil 7 with the suitcase that you can expand on and keep organized and stuff like that. And even games like Signalis and Alyssa have some sort of way to counteract the inventory system being very limited. such as Alyssa having a key ring, ammunition being in its own like inventory, and like medical supply stacking and stuff like that. And Signalis has an item box, just like the classic Resident Evil games. Callisto Protocol does not have that. Even Dead Space had an item box, and you can carry a lot of stuff later on down the line in all 3 Dead Space games. It's just that Callisto Protocol doesn't have one, so you're stuck dropping stuff that you could potentially need or could sell off solely because you just don't have a lot of room. And with the fact that some of that room can get taken up by ammunition, blueprints, med supplies, grip batteries, and the junk you find that are contraband to sell, it kind of detracts from the flow. It makes the survival horror feel meaningless and kind of inventory management like kind of a nuisance compared to all the other games. Like, I love inventory management. I've told my mom multiple times I've played Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil 4, the remake and the original, and there'll be moments where I literally have a bunch of stuff in my inventory, and I will literally just sit there in like a hostile zone or like in a safe space and just start organizing just for fun, because it could be very cathartic. There's literally a Steam game where literally you're just inventory organizing. That's how cathartic organizing your inventory is. In Callisto Protocol, it's not that great, because not only can you not organize, but literally you have such limited space, there's no point in trying to organize. And it just makes the entire experience feel, annoying. And that also leads me to another reason I didn't like about the Callisto Protocol. Aside from the upgrade system being way too upgraded, the inventory being too limited, the linearity making it impossible to actually like work through and actually get enough cred and also feel like you've accomplished something just to be able to like get like a maximum of upgrades, is the combat. Listen, the combat may be extremely unique. Being it strictly dodge, melee, and blocking is actually kind of fun, because it gives an incentive to actually like save ammo. Not a lot of survival horror games have melee combat. If anything, the Resident Evil games have shown this. Literally, you have a knife, but it's usually mostly used for like a last resort kind of thing. Or better yet, like games like, let's see, like Evil Within have a melee combat, but it's usually meant to like do a little bit of damage to an enemy when you want to get them away from you, try to stun them. Or better yet, it's also like meant to like just destroy boxes and stuff, kind of like the Resident Evil 4 and 5, where literally you can just hit things with your knife and be able to open it and just get items out of it. The thing is though, is that the combat is so like bare bones and monotonous and repetitive to a degree that literally it's like not even that fun to like constantly be in melee combat. And I'm one of those people to say that every game can get repetitive. It's just the player themselves has to destroy that repetitiveness. Take games like, Left 4 Dead, games like Doom, games like even the survival horror games I mentioned, like either Evil Within and Resident Evil and stuff like that. Also take games like, let's see, like Call of Duty, and they have repetitive mechanics and stuff like that, but the player can find ways to change that, whether it be through modding, doing challenges, trying out different play styles, or just trying out the multiple variants of difficulties, different modes and stuff like that. There's a way to kill off repetitiveness for a game. The thing is, though, is that the Callisto Protocol will always be repetitive regardless of the modes and difficulties. You'll still be doing the same thing over and over again. Melee combat that's back and forth between you and the enemy, dodging, blocking, hitting, doing heavy attacks, shooting them. It's the same thing, rinse and repeat. And then you're probably wondering, well, then there might be more enemy variety that might change it up. Unfortunately, no. From what I've seen, there's typically only 3 to 4, maybe 5 enemy types compared to like games like Resident Evil and Dead Space, and all of them are pretty much exactly the same. There's the ranged enemy that literally we just shoot his head off. It's back to melee combat. There's the normal goons. There's the evolved version, which is just a normal goon but with more health and can do more damage. There is the suiciders, which are just explosive enemies and stuff. There's also the enemies that like are stealth related, like they are blind but they use their hearing. Once you get spotted, it's back to the normal combat again, and you do this over and over and over again. Even the enemies that look like they could put up a pose of a threat, like the fat infected lithophage and the lithophage guards that have their armor, they don't even put that much of a fight. They're not even that strong. Even the invisible enemies, the ones that crawl around and are invisible, they're really weak and they're not that powerful, and it's just the same combat as usual. And not to mention, you do get to see robots in the game, like the security bots. The problem with them is that they're way too easy to deal with. They can one-shot kill you with their machine gun, but with a fully upgraded hand cannon, it just takes 1 to 2 shots to take them out, and you can take their decoder for fun and then just run off, and that's it. The combat's very monotonous. And that also gets me into another thing I don't like about the Callisto Protocol, is the fact that the limited weapon variety. Holy crap, this game has such little weapons that are unique and of a varying quality. Literally, there are 2 shotguns, 1 assault rifle, 2 pistols. That's pretty much about it. There's probably another weapon I forgot about, but to be fairly honest, that's probably just going to be another version of the assault rifle. So, technically speaking, 2 assault rifles, 2 shotguns, and 2 pistols. Only 6 weapons. Meanwhile, you got games like Dead Space that had 7 weapons. They all had their unique purposes. You had the plasma cutter, the pulse rifle, the ripper saw, the line gun, the contact beam, the flamethrower, the frickin' force gun, and they all got their reworks in the next game after Dead Space. And then, even then, Dead Space 2 tacked on 3 more weapons. The mine thrower, the seeker rifle, and even the frickin' javelin gun. And let's not take in the fact that if you beat the game on the hardest difficulty, you get the frickin' titular and iconic foam finger that has infinite ammo and is literally a one-shot. It's kind of baffling that they had all these weapons. And even then, Dead Space 3 decided to take that to a next level and made it so you can make your own weapons. So they added more weapons to the roster to a degree based off crafting, such as a shotgun, a railgun, being able to make a literal Bowie gun that shoots bolas. You can even make a gun that just literally just is a DMR. You can make a burst fire assault rifle and stuff like that. You can make a machine pistol, a revolver. They've added a lot of opportunities even in 3, as much as 3 gets freaking dogged on by its like creative choices and stuff. That game actually had some pretty good and pretty innovative ideas. And Callisto Protocol has a limited weapon set that they all feel samey, just with different names and different ways of shooting. That's different. They're just slightly different to a degree where there's no genuine difference. And not to mention, you only get 1 melee weapon. And from what I've seen, one of the DLCs that like gives you the riot mode and like ends the game off like in a cliffhanger, just overall shows that the game is just that the game wasn't gonna last long in the first place. There was only like 1 new melee weapon in that DLC, and it was a hammer that had electrical damage that did AoE damage, which was cool, but you were only giving it at the near end of the game. And even then, there was typically no purpose of like getting new weapons in the first place. And then you have the things that I did like. The story was relatively okay. I did like the fact that the weapons felt punchy and damaging. The bosses, even though they were just the same boss over and over again, the 2 heads, actually felt like a fun fight, because you had to worry about getting hit with like heavy amounts of damage, and not to mention you have to like constantly shoot at them. You can't just hit them with your melee weapon because literally they'll just try to come at you with another swing, and that does a lot of damage, as I said. And the ending boss fight was quite unique. I'll say that. I like that as well. The dynamic between Jacob and Danny at the near end of the game, along with Elias, kind of felt a little bit off, but I did enjoy that part. Because in the fact that like all of a sudden they hate each other from like for like a bunch of reasons, and all of a sudden they're buddy buddy, which is kind of weird. And not to mention, I also like the fact that literally weapons, as I said, felt punchy and they were reliable. Aside from their differences not being there, they were reliable. But as I said before, I give this game like a 6.5 out of 10. This game wasn't that bad. I enjoyed my time, but I can understand why people didn't like it. Glenn Schofield did a pretty meager job on this game. To a game that was technically supposed to be the spiritual successor to Dead Space, it's kind of disappointing to see this game just fall flat on its ass and not even being of merit. However, though, this was my half-baked review. I hope you guys enjoyed. It was a fun time playing this game. As of this video, the game is still free to grab on the Epic Game Store, so grab it as quick as you can. It won't be free the next day, but to each their own. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.